Hey everybody, how's it going? Hey, I just wanted to jump on here and talk about a couple of things. I was watching I guess Jesse Ventura has a show on RT. I saw on YouTube. I guess they filmed it about a week ago, and they were talking a little more, some details that didn't know about the Epstein case. That I think I'm gonna try to put together a FOIA and send to the CIA. One of the things they mentioned was that at some point, first of all, I think the guy listening to that interview, and I suspected this a while ago, the intelligence agencies have used extortion and blackmail to control politicians for a very long time. That is a well-known tactic employed by the CIA and the Mossad. It's very possible that Epstein was working for both, or I think it's more likely he's working for the Mossad, because that's right up the Mossad's alley, is trying to control American politicians through extortion, blackmail, any way they possibly can, bribery. So then what else leads me to believe he's an intelligence operative is just they were talking about some of the details about how, he's always making these big money deals and paying people off and been doing all kinds of sketchy stuff since like the 80s or 90s, and that he at one point had, and this is apparently in his Florida case, had a Austrian passport with a name other than his own, and he claimed it was to protect himself when he was in the Middle East, so they didn't know he was Jewish, with his last name Epstein. The other thing you of course have to look at, and Acosta is saying, Jim Acosta, who was the U.S. attorney who prosecuted the case, who gave him the sweet deal, is saying that, and I don't know the source of this. This was RT saying that Jim Acosta has claimed that Epstein was an intelligence asset. Didn't say he was a CIA asset, said he was an intelligence asset. And because, here's Acosta, who may have been told, hey, you know what, either you're going to make a sweetheart deal with this guy or your family's going to disappear. That's the sort of people we're dealing with here. Or was just told by the U.S. attorney higher up above him, the attorney general or whoever it may be. There's a lot of folks above a regional U.S. attorney. He was in South Florida at the time. May have told him, hey, you know what, you're going to make this sweetheart deal, and that's the way it is, even though it made absolutely no sense. And then they talked about, the worst part about it was, part of the plea deal, there were like 34 underage girls involved. And, they were talking about how instead of him being charged with, raping or molestation or any of that sort of thing, pedophilia, instead he was going to be charged with, and he was agreed to a plea deal on solicitation, 2 solicitation charges. So not only does that not clearly define what crimes he actually was guilty of, but it says that the young women were prostitutes, okay? Because if there's solicitation, there's got to be prostitutes. So that sounds like a maneuver typical of the Luciferians, to then come back and slap the victims in the face and say, okay, out of this plea deal, you're now labeled a prostitute. Sounds right up their alley. So I'm going to try to start digging on this some more with some FOIAs. FOIA the CIA with all kinds of keywords, I think, and see if maybe they knew about this, or they acted on the behalf of the Mossad, or if Epstein was working for CIA or what. I wish I could FOIA the Mossad, but I doubt that could happen. So anyway, I found those facts very interesting on the Epstein case, and just by virtue of the fact that he got that sweet plea deal tells you how many important people are involved. And this 2-tier justice system, one for, the wealthy and powerful, and then the rest of us, get treated as criminals. It's just absolutely unacceptable, so I don't care whether Epstein dies in jail or not. I think all the truth is still going to come out on this, and all the powerful people that he was working to extort and blackmail on behalf of some intelligence agency. That's what I believe is going on. And just the sort of money he's dealing with. They say billionaire, but he's apparently not a billionaire. He's like worth $500 million, but then they're saying, okay, well, he's saying, oh yeah, I was a hedge fund manager, and all they can do is verify one particular client as a hedge fund manager. So it sounds an awful lot like he could have been being fed a lot of cash from an intelligence agency as opposed to actually earning that money. There's also other stuff out there of how he swindled some people, but I really suspect that the source of these large sums of money that it takes to build islands and stuff like that, it's far more likely that that's coming from some sort of government entity as opposed to him just earning it on his own. Anyway, I wanted to jump on here and talk about that, you know, this bullshit about white nationalism. Go look up the word nationalism again. I called this out 3 months ago on one of my videos that this was a narrative and a propaganda campaign on their part. Because what they're doing is they're morphing white nationalism into white supremacy. The two have nothing to do with one another other than they're both white people. So frankly, it's just racist as hell to even say you're a white nationalist. Like, well, yeah, I'm a nationalist in that I'm a patriot and I prioritize the interests of my country and its citizens. But why does it even matter what color I am? Why do you put white nationalist in front of that? And there's a reason for that. Again, folks, they are trying to morph the word white nationalist, which simply means you're a Caucasian patriot, and a lot of Trump supporters are Caucasian patriots, and they're trying to morph that into, you know, to change the definition of that to a white supremacist. It's such a load of bullshit, typical leftist, you know, wordplay crap, where they get a narrative going, and now you have all these idiots on Twitter talking about you're a white nationalist. It's a baseless, you know, racist political platform. And it's like, now, first of all, it's not baseless, dude. It's prioritizing your country. Secondly, there's nothing, absolutely nothing to do with racism in it all. So folks, just call people out on that crap. Reject that white nationalism term. Ask them, why does it even matter? Why are you labeling people by their color relative to their politics? I mean, it's so absurd. Just imagine saying, oh yeah, you know, black nationalism's a problem. And then they want to pretend like, you know, look at mass shootings like it's only white folks that are doing this. Now, granted, these are all sickos doing this stuff. A lot of them are under MK Ultra mind control and are assets that are now being triggered, you know, to go do the mass shootings for distraction and divisive purposes, and that's working rather well. But just remember that if you look at actual mass shootings, which they define as 4 or more people, there's plenty of people of every color that are performing these heinous acts. And a further example of that is, and why I believe the Virginia Beach shooting was real, is because it involved a black man. He was a Democrat, and he was a Muslim. He had been converted. He had converted to Islam, and it was the last day of Ramadan. And I haven't researched this yet, but apparently there's something about killing folks on the last day of Ramadan that makes you a better Muslim. I haven't researched that in the Quran or anything like that, nor will I, probably. But, so you don't hear about that shooting. You heard about it for a day or two, and that's about it. And then it's gone. And it's like, well, that doesn't make any sense, you know? Whereas the other mass shootings, you know, you could see the leftist politicians, even Elizabeth Warren, who, you know, one of her supporters, or I think both of these guys were supporters of Elizabeth Warren, were the shooters. They jump on this like white on rice because they've got a narrative, they've got their direction to push a particular narrative, and that narrative is to try to shame white Trump supporters, to try to vilify white Trump supporters, and to try, this is one of the big things they're doing too, is to try to drive a wedge between the people of all colors that are Trump supporters. Because I got to tell you, they know they're going to lose in landslide elections in 2020 because they have lost a significant portion of the black American vote. So they're trying to convince black folks also, hey, you don't want to be a part of this white supremacist movement. Well, it's not white supremacist. It is nationalism, which means prioritizing your country with free and equal trade, level playing field trade, with, you know, securing our borders, those sorts of things. Taking care of Americans first. That's being a nationalist. And if that's bad, then I'm an evil son of a bitch, and so are 60, 70, 80 other million people out there who believe the very same thing that I do. Anyways, guys, I'm going to roll. I just wanted to jump on here and talk about that Epstein. And again, don't fall into this white nationalism crap. And you know what? I'm sorry, but white supremacy is probably at an all-time low in this country. I'm sure there's people out there that quantify that, and there's some reasonable scientific ways to quantify it. And I bet if you got your hands on that data, you would see that white supremacy in this country is at an all-time low. But let's also remember that there are idiots of every race out there. White folks, black folks. That's what Farrakhan's all about. They are black separatists. They actually want part of their mandate is they want part of the country, part of the several states, and they want to create their own black American state where it's nothing but black folks. They're white separatists. They're very hateful. I've read their publications before. I understand what they're all about. And you don't hear anybody up in arms about that. As a matter of fact, you see leftists actually doing public meetings with Louis Farrakhan, which implies support. So the leftists would have you believe that white nationalists are bad, but like black separatists like Louis Farrakhan, who are stone cold racists, well, they're okay, and we can make public appearances with them. So it's absolutely absurd. But there's dummies of every race out there who are prejudiced, who are racist, and it's kind of funny because these whole shooting incidents have really shown how racist a lot of the leftists can be, who love to fancy themselves as open-minded and tolerant. They're really not. They're the most intolerant people in the world. If you actually look at what they're saying, they are attacking folks like me who happen to be Caucasian and happen to be a patriot that prioritizes our country's interests first. There's something really wrong with that, folks. Don't buy into it. Call them out on it when you see it. I love y'all. Keep up the good work. Good things are happening. The criminals are going to get arrested. The Luciferians are going to continue to try distractions, and it's not going to work. They're going to be held accountable for their crimes. Justice is going to be brought to this country and this world, and the world is going to be a much better place by the end of this year. I promise you that. I feel it happening. I see it happening day by day, and I'm sure you guys do too. All right, you guys take care. I love y'all. Bye.